Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Aparutade sangamata satavara ye soravanta bamunchantu satang. So this past week, quiet week, I wish we had quiet weeks every week. So the quietness, stillness, emptiness, non-self. Then there's the noisy world, sound, sight, smell, taste, touch, thinking, emotions. So there's a quote from a Roman philosopher of around the period of 480 AD. It goes, if it sticketh to the constancy of the supernal mind, which needs not move, it is superior to the necessity of fate. So that, rather like that as a reflection, if it sticketh to the constancy of the supernal mind. And to me that means awareness, the stillness, the internal stillness, the unshakable conscious with awareness, the constancy of the supernal mind that needs not move, superior to the necessity of fate. So the necessity of fate is all the conditioned realm. You know, our fate is death, isn't it? Being born. Our fate means we're all going to die. And so that's putting it in rather stark, unromantic, direct terms. But this is a reflection. It's not a kind of depressing fact, but recognizing when we use the word fate, what is that? It's an English word. And being born means our fate is to die. All that is born dies. Well, that's reflecting on the way conditioned phenomena is. It's not saying it's good or bad, but that's the way it is. And so in Vipassana meditation, the Buddhists always pointing to that all conditions are impermanent, and so that this is all that begins ends. So the fate of all that begins is ending. Then if it sticketh to the constancy of the supernal mind, it is superior to the necessity of fate. So fate is a necessity, isn't it? We're all having to live through our vipaka karma as it arises in the present moment. The necessity of fate is like vipaka karma, that which, the conditions for this feeling, for this emotion, for this memory, for feeling hot or cold, pleasure, feeling pleasure, pain, whatever, changing condition, is the way it is. And the reason why we have these conditions is because of birth. Because we're born into these human forms, which are sensitive forms, conscious forms, and so we're fated to feel and be sensitive. Having a physical body like this, eyes that see, ears that hear, the nose that smells, tongue that tastes, body that is a sensitive form, pleasure, pain, heat and cold, and the thinking mind, the emotional habits, the memories. So in this reflection on the five khandhas, The Buddha used these particular teachings because it's kind of making everything more easy. If you have 5 khandhas, you have 5 groups, and then to put everything. I remember one of the translations of the 5 khandhas was. I remember years ago. I don't think they still use it, but if you see in some translations of Pali, of the Pali Canon, they call it the 4 heaps. And a heap is just a pile of stuff, isn't it? It's not an ordered kind of alphabetically numbered, neatly transcribed setting for anything. It's merely like a pile of something. So the English word heap and khandha, I quite like that, because it does get the point across, like the rupa khandha, the body. You put all these bodies in a heap, or vedana, feeling, pleasure, pain, or neutral, another heap. And so you're not making anything, that interesting or that important about any of the conditions. How my feelings, about my feelings, or my views and opinions, or my sensitivity, or my own body, in terms of giving it a kind of importance, but putting it in these 5 aggregates, or 5 groups, or 5 heaps, is a way of beginning to loosen the strong sense of attachment to the conditioned world, to phenomena. So this, in the 5 khandhas, is rupa khandha, the body, vedana, the feeling, sensitivity, attraction, aversion, and so forth, and neutral feeling that arises through the senses. Sanya, perception, memory. Sankhara can be translated as thinking or emotion. And then vijnana. So the question, people ask me the question, and because I use vijnana as the unconditioned, and yet in the 5 khandhas, vijnana is considered anicca, dukkha, anatta. So this is now recognize that these are expedient means. 5, when there's rupa and vijnana, and then the other 3, isn't it? The vedana, sanya, sankhara. This is the conditioning process. Vedana, sanya, sankhara. When a baby's born, it has rupa and vijnana. And rupa is born, vijnana isn't born. The rupa, the body of a baby, is born, and so it's functioning as an independent physical form that's conscious. So just reflecting on it, we tend to think of consciousness as in the body, as if it's in the brain, or it's inside us. But is that really the experience? Is vijnana or consciousness? We're experiencing consciousness, but is it, and through this form, through the body, through the physical human form. Now that's natural, those are natural conditions. The body belongs to nature. It's a condition, born and dies. It's made up of the 4 elements, this solid, liquid, air, and fire. 4 elements. It's conscious. It's in space. So we're experiencing space and consciousness in a form. So what I'm doing is trying to convey to you how to reflect on the reality of this present moment. I'm not asking you to kind of grasp what I'm teaching or saying as some kind of Ajahn Sumedho take on Dhamma, but it's more of a, because I don't want you to identify this with me, but I'm sharing my own insight and encouraging a kind of reflection, how to use these teachings so they're not just grasped in terms of definitions that you get from books or dictionaries, teachers. Because these, the five khandhas, the six ayatanas, the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, mind, all these are expedient means for liberation from birth and death, superior to the necessity of fate. Now then, Buddha emphasized that mindfulness is the way, that's the path. That when we're not mindful, then we're caught in the conditions that identity with the body, with the feelings, with the memories, with the emotions. And then consciousness is always distorted through that attachment. So just notice that suffering that we experience is how much we suffer through the distortion that we're attached to of me as I'm this body, I'm this person. And the memories, the emotions we have, we're very attached to our feelings. Our reality is feeling, isn't it? We feel, we're sensitive forms. But feeling is a condition, an identity with feeling, attachment to feeling is the cause of suffering. So we're not trying to get rid of feeling, but put it in its proper position, so we're no longer just helpless victims of our feelings. Because when we see things through the distortion of ignorance, of avijja, of not understanding Dhamma, not realizing the supernal mind, which needs not move, then we are always caught in the motion, the ups and downs of the conditions that we're experiencing. So that's why the world is the way it is, why society is like this, why international problems, politics, and the economy, and the social problems, and the wars, and the ethnic prejudices, racial prejudices, and all like that, are all about ignorance and attachment to conditions. This is the ignorance of our humanity that the Buddha was pointing at. The way out of this is through awakening, through mindfulness and reflection, investigating. So these Four Noble Truths are for investigation. Yoniso manasikara, in the Pali terms, looking into, getting to the very root. The causes of suffering and its causes. And that's the first two, the first, second Noble Truth. Then the third and fourth is all about cultivating emptiness or non-attachment. Inward, like superior to the necessity of faith. This is just one way of expressing it, but with mindfulness it's not about superior or inferior anymore. These words that convey quality and quantity, position, these are conditions. They arise and cease. They're anicca, dukkha, anatta. So, and the thinking mind, the way that, when we attach to thinking, to the rational thinking process or the emotional habits, when we attach to what our emotions tell us and what our memories and thoughts and views and opinions, no matter how intelligent or foolish or insane or sensible or stupid they might be, they're all conditioned phenomena. And that which knows, which is aware of conditioned phenomena, is not a condition. Well, consciousness is the ability to know, isn't it? Where it's not, consciousness is the universe we're in. It has no boundary. But we experience consciousness through a form. So that's the human birth is this. It's having to experience this planetary life, this sensitive realm, through a sensitive form. And so that consciousness is pure in itself. It's not personal, it's not mine, it's not, I can't claim it as some kind of personal quality that I have, or that I have any more than you do, or it's different in any way. Say, consciousness is not conditioned, so it's immeasurable. Its ability to know, its sensitivity, its intelligence, and discerning. But we connect intelligence with discrimination. So, our education, our whole modern educational system is based on discriminating through thinking, through rationalization, logic, these abilities to use thought in skillful ways, to have terms, to project names and values onto conditioned phenomena. So we have good and bad, right and wrong, true and false, heaven and hell. And so these are terms that we project onto conditions. So languages are, created by human ignorance. And they can be used. Ignorance in this sense is not understanding Dhamma. So we have language, we have memory, we have social values, cultural values, morals, ideals. We have hellish realms, we have criminality, cruelty and brutality, demonic forms, angelic ones, refined and coarse. Now, the necessity of faith then lies in that whatever we tend to attach to, we become that out of ignorance, out of avijja, not understanding them, and then we tend to become whatever we attach to. So that's why morality is such a condition sine qua non of proper kind of human behavior. We have to agree on behavior, because we have this gamut of the best to the worst, from the heavenly realms, the Brahma, to the satanic. This potential within our minds, within consciousness, these conditions arise. So as human beings, we have moral codes, like in the Theravada Buddhism, the 5 precepts, isn't it? The 5 precepts is the kind of basis of moral agreements on how to live with each other in a society, in a family, in a community, in which we agree to not kill, steal, exploit and misuse our sexuality, not to use our speech for deceiving, lying, or harming others, or refraining from intoxicants and mind-changing drugs. So this is we are, in Buddhist tradition, you have to ask for the precepts. I've always liked that. In what attracted me to Buddhism, one of the things I really appreciated was it put morality in a proper position for me, because my own cultural background wasn't so clear. Like you could have immoral thoughts. You could have, and that you weren't moral person if you had immoral thoughts. Where in Buddhism, it's if we have immoral thoughts, we're aware of them, but we don't act on them or speak on them. So this gives us a chance to investigate in order to understand our humanity, the state we're in, this planet that we live on, the consciousness that we're experiencing through the forms, the necessities of fate that we find ourselves in. Like the necessity of fate of Ajahn Sumedho, being this monk, this person, this form. An awareness of it doesn't mean it's evaluating it in terms of good, bad, best, worst, or whatever. It's recognizing that the body's like this. The title Ajahn Sumedho is another projection. It's a convention to use, but it's not a grasping of it. Then as a Buddhist monk, where you're living a celibate life, you determine to live in this state of celibacy. But you still have sexual energy. The body still has its, when the conditions for sexual arousal are present, the body certainly is aware of it. We feel it. But because of our determination when we become samanas to refrain from acting on sexual energy, we refrain from acting on it, but we're aware of it. And that which is aware of sexuality is not self, not a condition, superior to the necessity of fate. Sexuality is a necessity of fate, in other words. And yet, in the Western world, we take sexuality as something very personal. It's, good or bad, right or wrong, moral or immoral, elevated to the ultimate human experience or denigrated to a filthy kind of habit. Or we can put it into any context and evaluate it according to particular cultural or religious values. But in the samana life, the important thing is to recognize it. That which is aware of sexual energy, when the conditions for this particular feeling arise, there's an awareness of it. That awareness is superior to the necessity of fate. Or it's the way that we can actually put sexual energy into a context of Dhamma rather than seeing that as impersonal values or just trying to suppress it or fear it or despise it or dread it. If you've taken if you're a celibate, then of course what do? You can't. There's no way that you can deal with it other than through being aware, learning. So it's not about suppressing, becoming some kind of seeing sex as something to be frightened of or something to despise, but something to learn from. Not through acting on it, but through recognizing its impermanence. Being that which is aware sticketh to the constancy of the supernal mind that needs not move. Then in the Majjhima Nikaya there's a very good sutta called the Bhiddeka Rati Sutta, and it's translated as the one fortunate attachment. And so, one fortunate attachment. And of course it's about sticking to the supernal mind, recognizing the mindfulness, awareness, combined with consciousness and wisdom. Sticking to it. So what does that mean? And sticking to something. Once you recognize it, so in the Four Noble Truths, the important thing is recognizing. So that's what the third Noble Truth, that's what it's about, is recognizing, realizing what they call the cessation of conditions. Nirodha, cessation, nirodha satcha. Now, one can, if you take that too literally from the rational thinking mind without insight, then it sounds almost nihilistic or annihilationist, doesn't it? Like Theravada Buddhism easily lends itself to the criticism of being annihilationist, because it talks about extinction, about cessation, about non-self. Its whole way of expression on the intellectual level is not about grasping or finding something. It's not about getting happy or finding heaven, but in letting go of conditions. So that is to recognize cessation means that which recognizes when a condition ceases in consciousness. You don't kind of go into unconscious state when a thought or an emotion cease. At least I don't. Things arise and cease, thoughts come and go, emotions change. And that which is aware is conscious, awareness and consciousness. But it's the constancy of the supernal mind that needs not move. So that I would put into the category of the unborn, uncreated, unformed, unconditioned. So what the Buddha is really pointing at is liberation from ignorance, from birth and death. Now how does that strike you? Is he pointing to extinction, annihilation, cessation as a kind of total wipeout, a kind of empty void of nothingness? We can create that in the mind. We can think of a void of nothingness, of annihilation. Or we can create an eternal heaven, like a heaven where everybody is happy all the time. Like a childlike heaven where we're all just happy and we get everything we want and everybody's beautiful and kind and sweet. We can create an ideal of heaven or annihilation or of hell. We can create an image of permanent misery, of hell where there's unmitigated, unending pain and misery and torture and brutality. So in the human ability to create out of ignorance of Dhamma, not being awake and not being aware, we tend to recreate conditions. We take conditioned phenomena and just rearrange them all the time. So we try to create new conditions or new ideals or new arrangements. Or what the Buddha is pointing at is awakening to reality, in which the real is the deathless rather than some kind of annihilation or nihilistic view, or eternal heaven, or all the kind of probabilities and permutations on conditioned phenomena that we can create in our mind. We can create limbo, we can create temporary states, different levels, different qualities, from the best to the worst, from the sublime to the ridiculous, to all kinds of, to what's sane and practical, to what's stupid and insane. But that which is aware, is the escape from that, superior to the necessity of faith. So contemplate this, and this is something that you need to realize in your own in consciousness, not through thinking or through trying to analyze endlessly yourself or Buddhism or whatever, but to take these teachings and put them so that they actually, they're tools to use. You've asked to use these tools in the monastic sangha, isn't it? You ask to train, to use these tools for what? For personal liberation, for personal position, or for liberation from ignorance and conditioned phenomena. So Buddhist monasticism isn't about, reinforcing self, but it's a expedient means, simplification, in order to make life more simple, less complicated on the external side, the moral, the economic, the political, the social conditions that are very complicated for most people. And that the modern society is very complicated. The personality is a very complicated one. We tend easily to neurosis because we can create endless problems in our mind about little things. We have psychology, psychotherapy, endless attempts to try to iron out the wrinkles of the conditioned world and make it nice and smooth. But it's the necessity of fate. We are the way we are. We have these thoughts, we have these emotions, these tendencies, these inclinations, habits, good, bad, right and wrong, refined or coarse or whatever you see them. But is there anything you can really say is yours? And so this samadhi then, and the Eightfold Path, the Fourth Noble Truth, samadhi, samasangapo, that's the insight that comes through realizing the deathless. Through the Third Noble Truth, the cessation of conditions. When conditions cease, what's left? There's consciousness, awareness. You can prove this to yourself. When there's no self, when there's no attachment to memory or any quality or condition, you can recognize it. Realize it. It's like this. Non-attachment, you can discern it. Attachment, you know attachment and non-attachment. It's a discerning. It's not saying we shouldn't be attached to anything at all. That's one way of interpreting Buddhism, is that we shouldn't be attached to anything whatsoever, making it a kind of imperative and intimidation to everyone. And if you show any sign of attachment, that means you're not really a Buddhist, because Buddhists aren't attached to anything. I remember one time, this was before I ordained, in Bangkok, this Dr. Burns, who many of you heard of, he was an American psychiatrist living in Bangkok, and he was very learned on Pali. He knew Pali. He could speak Thai, and he was very authoritative. And he had strong views, and so he took my wristwatch just to see if I was attached to it. He took it off. And, I could tell that he wanted me to just ignore. If I was really a Buddhist, I wouldn't care. I'd just say, it means nothing to me. And so it was, he had this idea that one shouldn't be attached to anything. And so asking for your wristwatch back is like showing attachment, isn't it? Or is it? Or was he attached to the ideal of non-attachment? That's more like it. He was kind of in an arrogant position of saying, I'm going to prove how attached you are. Somebody else one time took my glasses, my spectacles, just to see if I was attached, what I would do when I didn't have my spectacles. For all of you who wear glasses, it's quite interesting, isn't it, when you can't find your glasses. Is that attachment? Should we just throw away our spectacles, our wristwatches, to prove we're not attached? And that would still be sakyaditi in many cases, wouldn't it? Because I'm trying to show you how unattached I am by throwing everything out the window. Or, mothers have asked me about attachment to their children. They say, it's, we are so attached to our children. And so I can't really be a Buddhist because of this attachment to children. Is that really what the Buddha is asking you to do? Get rid of your children? To prove you're not attached? And so this is where the non-attachment isn't about getting rid of anything. It's an imminent recognition, a discernment of liberation. Doesn't mean getting rid of your children. It means letting go of your attachments to children, your obsessions, the way that mothers can suffer so much because of their children, because they're so attached to, they want them to be like this, they worry, they endlessly create negative conditions, judgments, feelings that they can be aware of. And actually that's, a mother that can really let go of all that is truly a wise mother, somebody to be praised. But it doesn't mean she doesn't love her children. It means that she's freeing herself from ignorant attachment to them, for personal neediness, for demanding, for all the things that parents can do to their children by wanting us, needing us, depending on us, and hanging on to us, thinking that it's love. Well, this is for contemplation. Love in this sense isn't about, isn't coming from ignorance. It's coming through wisdom. It's not about me liking somebody or needing somebody and saying I love them because I have to have them and hold on to them. I love them so much I can't live without you, kind of thing. That's more like obsessive liking or neediness. So in this sense of Brahma-vihara, love is non-attached. Non-attachment. It's not demanding, not, wanting something or not wanting something. So also recognize that the second noble truth is about desire, tanha, and this is a very useful way to reflect on desire, because it puts you in a relationship to desire of knowing desire rather than becoming someone with desires. If you don't know desire, then you become someone that has desires. So you have the Kama-tanha, Bhava-tanha, Vibhava-tanha, sensual desire, desire for becoming, ambition, achieving, attaining. Vibhava-tanha, desire for annihilation, for destruction, for getting rid of, suppressing, rejection. Now these three categories I found very useful categories on tanha. Tanha is the Pali word for translated in English as desire. Now that awareness of desire. Now this is where you need to really observe desire, get to become an expert, an authority on desire. Not you're trying to get rid of it, or become someone who doesn't have any desires, but know what it is. Because the problem isn't really with the desire, it's ignorance, it's avijja. Not knowing desire, not understanding it, then we attach to desires blindly. We become our desires. We have no perspective. We're kind of helpless victims of our desires. And that's why we suffer, because we're lost, we're victimized by the desires that we're feeling, physical, sensual, altruistic, rage and anger, destructive, annihilationist. So then the conundrum, that which is aware of desire, is that a desire? Can Vibhava-tanha be aware of Bhava-tanha? Can the desire to get rid of Bhava-tanha be aware of Bhava-tanha or of itself? Can Vibhava-tanha desire to get rid of defilements, desire to get rid of anger and jealousy and fear, desire to get rid of lust, of self-consciousness and all this, desire to get rid of these bad things that ruin our lives. That seems righteous, doesn't it? And that's where righteousness can really be deluding. It can be another form of Vibhava-tanha. We get on our high horse, we're right, people shouldn't kill, they shouldn't have abortions, they shouldn't be prejudiced, they shouldn't be, and all that, all the shouldn'ts. We should be good and kind and moral and liberal and understanding and compassionate. We get into our righteous mode. And you can hear it all over the place now. The Anglican Church here in England, America, all the righteous indignation around sexuality, around morality, around being liberal or fundamentalists. Being liberal was the kind you want to be kind of tolerant and have a kind of a beautiful tolerance towards everything, or you're a kind of purist, you're a fundamentalist. We've got to preserve the purity and the true meaning of the Bible, and we go on like that. We can do that with Buddhism, because these are conventions. They can be used skillfully or unskillfully. They're used with ignorance or with awareness, wisdom. So righteousness, righteous indignation, you get, full of your self-importance and condemn and preach, is like this feeling of righteousness is like this. That which is aware of feeling indignant and angry and resentful and righteous is like this. That which is aware, is that righteous? Awareness allows things to be what they are, so they know, it's like this. Not saying you shouldn't be righteous or righteous feelings you should get rid of, but it's recognizing them. Recognizing this sense of right and wrong, what should be and shouldn't be, is like this. So that's where if it sticketh to the constancy of the supernal mind that needs not move. The thing that I've used, as many of you know, is the sound of silence, which people are questioning and curious. Some get it, some don't. Don't make anything out of it. I mean, I'm not trying to create a sound of silence practice as some kind of superior practice. It's just a way of reflecting. It's about non-attachment. The important thing is the message is about non-attachment, not about attaching to the sound of silence through trying to find it or identify with it. It's merely a reflection of noticing, of awareness. So one can get very attached to the idea of the sound of silence, or that you can't get it, or that you don't know what it is, or you don't like it, or you don't see its importance, or it's not really pure Theravada Buddhism, or whatever, your feelings about it. You can be aware of that. But through this continuous reminding, this determination to the one fortunate attachment, paticca-rati, is this: to keep, no matter how strong a feeling is or whatever, to keep whatever you're feeling, boredom or laziness or heat or cold or happiness or depression or whatever, being successful or a failure. See, every condition that you're experiencing is opportunity for recognizing the unconditioned, that which is aware of the condition, awareness itself. So then samadhi is, even it's translated as right understanding, it's perfect understanding of Dhamma. It's not having a view or opinion about Dhamma anymore. It's not being attached to some fundamental view of Dhamma or righteous view. It's knowing, it's being Dhamma itself, right understanding, right intention, samma sangapo. And then the rest follow from that. Samma vaca, samma kammanto, samma chivo. The way we live, is spontaneous. Action, speech, livelihood come from wisdom rather than from attachments, views, opinions. And then, of course, the last three, samma vayamo, samma sati, samma samadhi. That is a balance, isn't it? On the energetic level, the emotional, the intellectual, the physical are in alignment then. How we live, how we conduct ourselves, our position in the society, our way of relating to the conditioned world is no longer coming from cultural conditioning, personal views and the ego, or from attachment to ideals, views, opinions, values, but it's a spontaneity and knowing, ability to respond to contingencies through understanding, through wisdom, rather than through habit, through reactivity, through cultural prejudices or even religious prejudices. It's no longer having a position that one takes on life, but it's the positionless, it's the wholeness, it's complete, it's perfect. Because it's pure consciousness that isn't, it's recognized and it has no boundary. We have to bear with the necessity of fate, though, the way we are, the tendencies that we have, the personalities, the emotions, the memories, physical conditions we find ourselves with, and the necessity of fate. But we're no longer deluded by fate, by the necessity of fate, because sticketh to the constancy of the supernal mind that need not move. Or in the Pali tradition, the Four Noble Truths. So this is, to an encouragement. I probably speak very strongly, but it is something to consider. I don't want you to go now, trying to believe me, or I'm not trying to say something new or original. So I don't want to become a cult figure, in other words. I'm pointing always to Dhamma, because our refuge is in Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. And that, to me, is on the conditioned level, on the conventional form. I value those refuges, because it is, it transcends. It's no longer about being European or English or Thai or Japanese or anything like that. It's no longer about being male or female or young or old, about being Buddhist or Theravadan or Mahayana or Christian or Jewish or anything like that. It's Buddha awakened consciousness in an individual. Dhamma, reality, Sangha, those who have refuge in Buddha and know Dhamma. That's Sangha, that's Sotapanna, Sakadagami, Anagami, Arahant, the four stages. As we recognize this way, through mindfulness, through discerning it, through wisdom, then the tendencies, the power of the conditioned realm loses taking the power out of the deluding side of it. It's still a necessity of fate, having to live what remains of this form, and with personalities, and when the conditions arise, then you feel like this. Somebody insults me, I feel it. Insults me personally, I certainly feel. I don't like it. Totally indifferent to being insulted, but there's a recognition. And the strength lies in referring to, remembering Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, rather than in believing, how dare you insult me, kind of reaction that might happen if I'm not aware. If I just get lost in reactions to insults, then I'm back into that realm of rebirth, of being somebody who should be respected and not insulted. But in terms of Dhamma, then it's awareness. The Buddha isn't about me. Dhamma is not about my Dhamma or Sangha. I am a Sotapanna or Sakadakam or anything like that. Not about claiming or defining, but in using these particular conventions for non-attachment, for wisdom, with wisdom, understanding, liberation. And it does work. It's not a waste of time. If you sometimes, in the beginning stages, of course, you don't have very much confidence, and the emotional habits are overwhelming. But this is where this sense of determination, of one fortunate attachment, Padekarati, Padekarati to me means reminding myself. Then I've used this word Bhutto. Bhutto is the Thai mantra that we use in northeast Thailand. Or just looking at the robe, just looking at this color, this form, rather than taking it in kind of personal, I'm a Buddhist monk, and so forth. It's using the robe for reminding yourself, Sangha, those who practice. Supatipano, ujupatipano, yaya patipano, samiji patipano. So then it's not about me being an Ajahn or a bhikkhu or anything like that, or senior monk. It's about using this for reminding. Sangha is my refuge, not my position, not my titles. So it's not that, it's about using the robe, the alms bowl, the Buddha Rupas, the tradition, for this reminder. You're surrounded here at Amaravati with reminders. You've got Buddha Rupas everywhere, relics, and all these forms. Monks and nuns, seen monks and nuns as Sangha rather than as personalities. And the lay people also use the situation here for remembering Supatipano, Ujupatipano, Sangha. The Buddha Dhamma Sangha is a refuge. And so Buddha is not about, is not mine, or Dhamma is my Dhamma, Ajahn Sumedho's Dhamma, or Sangha is Ajahn Sumedho. It's about this refuge that transcends the necessity of fate, the sense of identity with my position, with my body, with my, with the various identities and memories and so forth that might arise because they're the necessity of fate. So this patika rati, one fortunate attachment, it's like continuous reminding, no matter what's happening, no matter how painful or arduous a situation might be, find a way of reminding yourself. Just simplicity like Bhutto or mala beads, or developing a sense of the robe a form, something to remind you of Sangha rather than of bhikkhus, siladharas, samaneras, anagarikas, and so forth. I think these are seniors to those, and these are, we get into the attachment to the forms. So Sangha then isn't about being a monk or a nun. It's about practicing in the right way. It's not about me being, senior bhikkhu and all that, and me being a teacher and all that kind of thing. Those are the necessities of faith. But that which is superior to that is the awareness. And the awareness then, the constancy of the supernal mind which needs not move. Then the conditions move through consciousness, and they are what they are. Good, bad, right, wrong, pleasant, painful, accordingly. And also you begin to see the pain, the misery of being somebody, of being a person, being a monk or a nun, being a Buddhist, being any condition. The suffering of identity, of attachment, clinging, ignorance, attachment, and desire that come from ignorance of Dhamma. So the Buddha as a refuge is knowing attention in the present, knowing the way it is, awakening to reality. And then as individual humans, our refuge is Sangha rather than in positions or identities on a personal level, of making monasticism into some kind of personal identity. It's not meant to be that. And we're not trying to say that, like intimidate the lay community. We're not priests or better or purer or superior to lay community. We're interdependent, aren't we? We need the lay community. So, and the lay community, you need to develop ways of reminding yourself of your refuge in Buddha Dhamma Sangha rather than in your emotions and views and opinions and worldly problems. Now they're the necessity of fate, but learn to trust yourself more by awakening, observing. No matter how difficult your life might be at times, it's not an obstruction to liberation. If you're willing to, just even for a second, remind yourself, or just remember Puto, even if you forget it the next moment. Eventually, the power of Puto will be stronger than your tendency to get overwhelmed with your feelings of the present moment. The supernal mind, constancy of the supernal mind that needs not move. Superior to the necessity of fate. So I leave that with you. That was Boethius, a Roman philosopher and politician, around 480 AD. Never heard of him before, but you keep running across these quotes, and some of them really jump out at me. That one particularly did years ago. I found this many years ago. Kind of, they suddenly know what they mean, and I've never used it as I'm using it now, but I do find it a kind of reinforcement of my emphasis on what we did in the winter's retreat of the unborn, uncreated, unformed, unconditioned. Because this is, universal wisdom, isn't it? This is, it's not about even being Buddhist. Buddhism is a skillful means. As Theravada, Pali suttas are to be used skillfully with awareness, not for identity and through clinging and ignorance, but through awakening. And that you have to do. That's something no one can do for you. So I offer this as a reflection.